Hello, folks. Welcome back. And now it's time to do some examples with arrays and vectors. We're going to be using, as I always do, the same file. I'm just going to be modifying it to each one of the exercises that I'm doing. The first thing I want to do is a little example with files. It is very common to use arrays to save into a file and to read from a file. We saw in a previous video how we can save to a file and how we can open from a file. So first of all, let's go ahead and do an include. This is the skeleton for arrays. Comment IO stream and namespace std main and return 0. This is skeleton. So since I'm going to be working with files, the first thing I'm going to do is include fstream. That is the first thing I'll need to do. And I'm going to go ahead and just to get that space out of there. So I'm going to do OF stream and I'm going to call it file name. So I'm literally declaring file name of type OF stream, right? And I'm going to do int num. And so I'm going to do cout enter 10 numbers to be saved. And new line. There we go. So the idea here is that I'm going to create a file name, and I'm going to save 10 numbers, and then I'm going to modify the file that I'm working on to read those 10 numbers. That's the main idea. So file name, open, and I'm going to call this numbers. Yeah, my numbers dot txt. And one thing that I need to clarify, I'm using a Mac, using my PowerBook Mac. But anyways, this works with Windows as well. It's obviously, these are, just file names. So there's my file name open. Then I'm going to do my little loop for int I equals 1, I less than equal to 10. So there's my loop right there. And what am I going to do? I'm going to do cout enter a or enter number, and then just because I want to get a little fancy, I'm going to put I. So it's going to display enter number and then the value of I, whatever it is, 1 through 10, right? And then I'm going to input that number into num. And then I'm going to do file name num and L. So for 10 times from 1 through 10, I'm going to enter the number, I'm going to input the number, and I'm going to save it into file name. And then I'm going to do file name dot close. And that's it. So again, here's my F stream. IO stream, obviously, C++. There's my array. OF stream file name. I'm declaring a file name and I'm doing a number. That's num. I'm going to say enter 10 numbers to be saved. I'm going to open the file my numbers.txt, and from 1 through 10, I'm going to enter the number and save it into file name. And that's all it's going to do. Let's go ahead and run this. And now there it is. So we enter the number 1. I'm going to do 12, 13, 5, 19, 7, 3, 11, 23, 10, and 1. And there's my 10 numbers, and that's it. I have saved 10 numbers into a file name named my numbers.txt. But how do I know that this is correct? Well, let's modify our file. I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Um, let's modify our file so that we can read the numbers. So a few changes. First, I'm going to do if stream file name, right? Num, I'm going to declare to be of 10. This is my array, by the way. This is my array right here. Array of 10 items. And I'm going to do int cnt. It's my counter. So far, so good. I'm going to do file name dot open, and I'm going to do my numbers dot txt. That is the name that I'm opening, the file name. And I'm going to go ahead and delete all this because I'm not going to use it. Let's do a loop, but I'm going to do a while loop. So I'm going to do while cnt less than 10. And you know, I just noticed I need to do initialize my counter is equals to 0. I've forgotten. I need to initialize it to 0 because I'm doing it in my while loop, right? I has to be initialized to something, or else it's going to be like, hey, what are you talking about? And remember, the double ampersand is for the and. File name of cnt. And what I'm going to do here is cnt plus plus semicolon, and I'm going to close the file. So what have I done? I'm not done with this program yet. I'm declaring my stream C++, F stream. I'm declaring file name to be if input. I have my array and a counter, which I initialize to 0 because I need to have it initialized if I'm going to use a while loop. I open my file, my numbers txt, and I'm saying while my counter is less than 10 and file name, I can, and basically what I'm saying here, by the way, is there is a value entering into counter. In other words, it's not empty. As long as there is something here and it's less than 10, include my counter. And I'm putting the value into my num, which is my array. Here's my array. I'm getting the value from file name into my array. And now what I'm doing is incrementing the counter. I'm not doing anything else with this. Now, let's go back to now what are we going to do? Cout. Numbers are, and I'm going to do NL for count equals 0 less than 10 and include cout my value and then return 0. So what am I doing all the way here? Okay. C++, F stream, namespace std, my standard screen, if stream file name. So it's going to be for input. Here's my array for 10 items. Here's my counter initialized to 0. I open up my file, my numbers txt. While my counter is less than 10, and I'm putting the value of file name into my number array, which is of 10 items. Increment the counter. So it's just going to do this. File name close is not going to do it. It's just this. I don't have brackets. It's just one statement. Then I close my file name. Now number has the values. So I'm going to say, hey, for 4, counter equals 0 to less than 10, increment by 1, print out the numbers. So let's see what it does. And I'm getting an error. I'm getting an error. Why am I getting an error? Look at this. Look at this. It's one little letter from a capital E to a lowercase e. And remember, guys, I don't like I don't rehearse my programs. That's why I get, and I'm very bad with typing. That's why I get the errors, and that's the way I'm doing it is the way it is. I'm not gonna cover by mistakes. Here they are. The numbers are 12, 13, 5, 19, 7, 3, 11, 23, 10, and 1. Right there. So the error I had was the NL, obviously I put in a capital E, which where it's not supposed to be. And so I open up I declare a file name, I have my array, I have a counter, I open up the file name. I input the numbers from the file name into my array. I obviously increase my counter, and I close the file. Now that numbers array, the array of numbers has the numbers, I display them with this for loop. And that's how it works. So pretty straightforward. Let's do a different example, totally different kind of example this time. I'm gonna erase all this, and I'm not gonna work with file names anymore. That was just an example that I wanted to show with examples. But I am gonna do a const here. Here it is, const integer, and I'm gonna, when I do constants, by the way, I do capitals. So I'm gonna do t scores equals 10. So remember, this here is a constant. It's not going to change, and it will be available anywhere in my program. I don't have more functions other than main for this example, but t-scores will be available everywhere. So I'm going to double my array to t-scores. Now, I know what you're saying. Why don't I just put 10 right here? I can put 10 by here. It's no problem. The one of the advantages of doing these arrays this way is that what if for some reason they were telling me, you know what, do a program that can hold 10, but then later they say, well, you know what, instead of 10 values, how about 20 instead of 10, or how about 9? Well, all I would have to do is change this number to 20 or 9, and this is automatically done. So I don't have to imagine I'm doing the changing the values throughout the program when I can just do it right here. That's the main reason for doing it this way. Double t equals 0.0. It's initialized. This is going to be used to add my numbers because I'm doing an average here. That's what I'm going to be doing. And then I'm going to do double. And so A, I'm going to be using to input a value. T is going to add them up, and then I'm going to average out. I'm going to average out all these values, okay? This is an average thing. So for int I equals 0, I less than t scores. And remember what I was saying about what if there's if I put 10 here, I will have to put 10 here, and there's in the future I'm going to use maybe another one over here, but I'm going to use t-scores eventually to when I do the average. But what if they say, oh, instead of 10, let's do 20? I will have to go and look in my program throughout the source code, all the places where I had a 10. Now, this is a small program, but what if my program had hundreds of lines? It's easier to just change it up here. So, C out, enter a value for element. I'm going to do I plus 1. I'm not adding 1 to I. No, I'm just saying display the element I plus 1. What am I typing? What am I typing? Okay. So there. And I'm going to do input my value into my array of I. So what have I just done? I'm saying, look, for 10 values, between 0 and 9, because it's less than 10. enter the number. I'm going to display the value and input the number. That's all I'm doing so far. Then I'm going to do for int I, my array, and I'm going to do t plus equals I. Now, what am I doing here? Now, this is different. Haven't seen this. First of all, I'm doing int I equals 0 here. I have to redeclare it over here. Remember, when I declare a variable, it's only in the group here. So this I is not available outside of this group, okay? So I have to do it over here. But this is a special for this is the way we do it, but over here, this is a way something that C++ allows us to do. For I in my array, it automatically knows how many elements are in my array, and I'm adding them up. T plus equals I. That's all it's doing. Now I can say A equals T divided by T scores. And see out the average is A. Make sure I don't have a capital E again, right? And see, this special for loop, it automatically knows in C++ the number of elements in my array. So by doing this, all I have to do is increment, I'm doing T plus equals I, so I'm adding to T. T was initialized to 0 over here. And here I'm adding the values that I entered in this array. And then I'm averaging them out and print them out. So I'm going to do this here. I'm going to put this up so I can see it. And I'm saying, look, what is the value of element 1? I'm in this part right here. I'm going to put 12, 14, 21, 2.5, 2 and then 0.5, 5.6, 7, 0.5, 1.2, and 3.2. They're all doubles, so it's okay. And the average is 6.5. So if I add them all up and divide it by 10, I will get 6.5. And that is the whole purpose of this example, in addition to adding, it was this right here. The special for where C++ automatically knows this variable will have this amount of elements. It's a special way of doing this. Okay, so that was the other example. It's time for doing another one. In this one, I'm not gonna use t-scores anymore. So I'm gonna erase it. So I'm gonna do int x and t equals 0 and a. I'm gonna declare 3 variables where t is already there. Now, what am I gonna do? I'm basically gonna do the same average program, but in a different way. It's basically what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do for int I equals 0, I less than x. Oh, okay, yeah. And I plus plus. And I'm gonna do something here. But before I do that, you notice how x is not initialized. It is not initialized. Can I do this here? No, I cannot. It doesn't know what x is. See, right there, look at this. X is initialized when used. I can't do that. Well, I can, but I'm gonna get an error. I'm not gonna know what to do. So when I was thinking about this example, I was looking at this. See out how many numbers. And I'm gonna send to x. So now, even though x doesn't have an initial value here, it does once I do this. How many numbers? 3 or 4 or 5? Well, that's how many I'm going to put in here. There's another thing I need to do now. Now I need to declare my array. Int a of x. array. Now, why am I doing it down here, not up here? Well, I'm asking how many numbers. Now that I have a value for X, now I can say, look, make my array X number of items. And for that many items, do the loop. And in the loop, I'm going to say cout, enter the value of element, or I'm going to get a little fancy, A of, and I'm going to do I plus 1. Remember, I'm not adding, I'm just putting the number. Like that, like so. And then I'm going to send over to A of I. There we go. That's all I'm doing. So enter my variables, see out how many numbers, input X. Now I can declare my array with X number of elements. And I'm doing my loop. I'm entering the value into my array. Now I can say for int I equals 0, I less than X. Remember, we already know how many X's. I plus plus. And we're going to do T plus equals A of I. So I'm adding all the members, all the elements of inside the array A into T, which was initialized to 0. Now I made this int, okay? Just to be clear, I'm entering integers, okay? I'm not doing doubles. It's because I'm using this as an example. So A equals T divided by X, and cout average is A. I am thinking this will work, by the way. There's no problem with this, but what if A, I'm gonna make A a double just to be safe. That's it. I could have left it as an int, but I'm not going to. I'm making this a double, and I'm sticking to my guts on this one because the average can be a number that is not a whole number, right? So here we go. How many numbers? I'm gonna put in 5 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the average is 3. There it is, just like that. The 5. Once I enter the 5, then over here, I declare my array to be a 5 members. My for loops were to 5 numbers, and that's how it works. Okay. So far, we've been using arrays, but you know, I have the word vector here. So to use vectors, we have to include vector. What is a vector, you might ask? Well, it turns out vector is a special form of an array. I mean, you can search up on Google or in any C++ book. In my words, a vector is a different way of, or a more advanced form of an array. That's my version of it. So once you have the included vector, now just like as with the files, I have fstream, and then I can declare files of ofstream or ifstream. Well, when I have vector, I can also include vector. The only difference here is that I gotta tell it what type. In this case, I'm using int. I'm gonna do values of 5. So what am I doing here? Before I continue, I'm gonna define my vector for 5 items. Now, one cool about vectors is that you can add or delete items from a vector. It's very, very easy. I'm not going to do it in this particular example. I'm only going to concentrate on the vector itself. So I'm declaring a vector in its values. Values is my vector and it has 5 elements. So for int and percent v colon values. I know this is throwing you out already, right? You're like, what is that? I'll explain that right now. I'm going to do C out, enter an integer value. I'm doing integers because that's what I ask. Semicolon, sin greater than v. And okay, before I continue, an explanation is due. Vector int, vector, and then of type int, values is the name, and it's 5 elements. So values is a vector of type int. Okay, that's how it should be read. Values is a vector of type int. Remember that special loop where I can do for, and then I can do a for int a value and then to the array? This is exactly the same thing, except I'm putting the ampersand v instead of just the letter v, because what's happening here is I'm going to enter the value into the vector of values, which is 1 through 5. Okay. Okay. So now I can do C out values entered. And I'm going to do for int v values. C out v. And I'm going to do tab instead of a line. And then I can do end line. So let's explain this before I run it. You including vector, because I'm going to be using the vector. I'm saying it, a values is a vector of type int. Values is a vector of type int, and it will hold 5 values. And again, vectors you can increase or decrease at pleasure, but we're given an initial value at this point. And then I'm saying, look, for int and percent v of values, remember that special for loop, enter the value to v. That's why I'm using the ampersand, because I'm changing the values. Now I'm going to display them. Now I don't need the ampersand. Now I'm saying, look, this is the values. Okay. So enter into your value 12, 3, 2, 1, 5. And there they are 12, 3, 2, 1, 5. Values entered. So the first, this for loop with the ampersand v, I'm entering the values into my vector. Then I'm displaying the values right here into the screen, and I'm using the tab, right? If I wanted to, I can do an L also over here, just so you can see the flexibility of this. I can do /n/n, see, 2 lines, and then I'm gonna enter the lines here. Okay, so I'm gonna do it again. 12, 4, 12, 5, 3, 34, right? And there they are. Now I enter 2 lines and then enter to that. So far, so good. There is one more example I want to use to be the last one. This one is not with vectors. We'll do more vectors in ahead. This was just a little intro to vectors, if you will. Let's go back to arrays. But this time I'm going to include string. I'm going to be using strings. So const, I'm now inside of main, const int total planets. How you spell planets? That's how you spell planet. Total planets. equals 8. I know what you're saying. Sorry, Pluto. Pluto's not a planet, guys. Sorry. So I'm doing const int total planets equals 8. So I'm defining this variable to have only 8 values. And I'm saying now, look, string planet names of total planets. Remember, total planets equals 8 equals, and check out what I'm gonna do now. See that right there? Mercury, Venus with a V, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, the biggest planet. I'll go to the next line. So I wanted to see on the screen. Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. How about that? And I'm going to put a semicolon there. See out. Here are the planets of our solar system. And I'm going to do for int I equals 0, I less than total planets, I plus plus. I'm going to do C out, planet names of sub J. And that's it. All right. This is not a J, it's an I. So I'm using string because I'm working with strings. I'm just saying I'm declaring a constant total planets of 8. Sorry, Pluto, not there. And I'm saying, look, I'm gonna have planet names, which is an array of strings, and I have 8 items because total planets is 8. And then I have my in between brackets, I'm putting in the names of the planets, and then I'm displaying them. And here they are. Here are the planets of our solar system from Mercury to Neptune. And that's it. Anyways, this was an introduction to arrays, and of course I had one example of vectors. We'll be using more vectors and arrays. In fact, my next tutorial after this one is going to be on a lot of arrays. So we do some sorting, I think. So I hope you enjoyed this. Anyways, if you like it, you know what to do. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and until next chapter. Thank you.